Hello, my name is Denis Halandzovskyi. Here are the verified facts about the Russian drone incursions into Poland and the response from Warsaw and its allies. In the night of September 9th to 10th, during a large Russian strike on Ukraine, multiple drones crossed into Polish airspace. Polish and allied aircraft scrambled, several drones were shot down, debris recovery began across multiple regions, and Poland invoked NATO's Article 4 to trigger allied consultations. Warsaw also asked for an emergency UN Security Council meeting. Polish leaders stated clearly this was not a mistake. It was a deliberate action synchronized with a multi-hour attack on Ukraine. If you find this useful, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. And thank you to all of Ukraine's partners for your continued help and support. Let's set the baseline. Poland is the first NATO member known to have fired during Russia's full-scale war to defend its own airspace, with Allied jets backing the operation. Warsaw pressed for the UN session, while European capitals condemned the violation. NATO's leadership publicly underscored alliance readiness as details were being forensically confirmed. Poland's leadership, including Prime Minister Donald Tusk and Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski, rejected any hints of an accidental overflight, noting the scale and timing alongside hundreds of drones and missiles launched at Ukraine that night. What does that mean in practice? First, Allied air policing and ground-based air defense along NATO's eastern flank are being reinforced. Second, Poland tightened airspace advisories and coordinated debris search with local authorities. Third, the Article 4 process is designed to lock in a collective picture and agree on options, from additional interceptors and radar coverage to shared rules for public alerts. The immediate objective is straightforward: defend Allied territory and reduce the chance of miscalculation as Russia pressures Ukraine and probes the region's defenses. Now, to the politics around the narrative and Viktor Orbán's remarks. On Hungarian state radio, Orbán called the drone overflights unacceptable, expressed solidarity with Poland, and in the same breath suggested the incident was expected because the Poles are up to their necks in the war, implying the drones were aimed at Ukraine, not Poland. Ukrainian and Polish outlets quoting his comments flagged this framing as misleading. The core issue is intent. Warsaw, citing scale and coordination, says the incursion was deliberate, not a navigational error. Why does this framing matter? Because Moscow routinely seeks ambiguity, stray drones, wind, or electronic jamming to blur responsibility and test Allied cohesion. Belarus echoed a version of that line, claiming some drones veered off course due to interference, even as Poland and NATO documented a multi-hour, multi-vector operation. Treating this as accidental invites more tests. Treating it as a coordinated violation tightens deterrence and strengthens responses that actually lower risk. Here is the measured reading. You can condemn the breach and keep communications open to avoid escalation. But the safest approach for civilians in Poland and elsewhere is to treat each cross-border incursion as intentional until disproven by evidence, not the other way around. That assumption drives faster scrambles, clearer public guidance, and more consistent Allied messaging. It also aligns with the reality that these drone routes were tracked for hours during a mass strike on Ukraine, which argues against an innocent drift. What are Europe and NATO actually doing now, beyond statements? First, NATO Article 4 consultations translate political unity into concrete air defense steps, rotating more fighters forward, integrating Patriot and other ground systems, and sharpening cross-border command links so intercept windows shrink to minutes. Second, the UN Security Council meeting puts the facts on the record: timestamps, flight paths, recovery sites, and increases diplomatic costs for repeat violations. Third, EU capitals are sinking enforcement on sanctions and export controls that constrain Russia's drone production and supply chains. NATO's public line emphasizes readiness while early counts are still being vetted. Standard crisis discipline. Poland reported roughly 19 objects entering its airspace. Several were neutralized, a house was damaged, airports briefly restricted operations, and the search teams issued safety warnings about debris. The point is not the exact count on day one, it's the pattern. Deep, timed incursions during a mass strike on Ukraine. That pattern fits previous Russian behavior of probing defenses and public messaging at the same time. Finally, the information domain. Russia and its proxies push quick, it was an accident narratives. Belarus offers the jamming alibi, and partisan takes try to shift blame. The counter is transparent forensics, Publish debris photos, radar tracks, and joint readouts. Keep cross-checks between ministries, NATO, and credible media tight, and update numbers as evidence firms up. That clarity protects civilians, avoids overreaction, and denies Russia the fog it wants. What to watch next, and how it ties back to Ukraine's defense. Expect the UN Security Council session record to cite the coordinated nature of the incursions and Poland's right to defend its airspace. Look for NATO's Article 4 outcome to include expanded air defense rotations in Poland and the Baltics, shared radar and counter-UAS kits, and standardized rules for debris recovery and public alerts. Watch Germany and other allies for additional Patriot or equivalent rotations, and track NATO's communications for sustained air policing over the border regions. For Ukraine, there is a straight line. The fewer drones and missiles Russia can launch or route near NATO borders, the safer Poland, Romania, and the Baltics are, and the more stable the logistics lifeline to Ukraine remains. That argues for accelerating air defense deliveries to Ukraine, boosting sensor coverage, and tightening sanctions enforcement on drone components. It also argues for steady, fact-based communication from Washington, Brussels, and Warsaw that closes the space for doubt and keeps deterrence credible. Bottom line, Russian drones in Polish airspace are not a technical glitch. They are part of a broader campaign against Ukraine and the Euro-Atlantic community. Poland's firm response, NATO's consultations, and EU solidarity are the right moves to lower risk through strength and clarity. Please subscribe and like to help more people find clear, verified updates. And thank you to all of Ukraine's partners for your continued help and support.